So the third session of QHHT. Yes, part three.
Yes, part 3. So third and final session. Or if you're going to do it all at once, and this is like generally the third part, is basically doing like a Q&A with your higher self. So have certain questions in mind.
Like you wrote these questions?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I wrote down like a big long list of questions, which is like, it's maybe pick a few to focus on would be like a good indicator. And like, you're not going to get an answer for everything depending on what you're asking. Like sometimes the answer is like, it's not the right time to answer that question. And
right, like it doesn't help you to know that right now.
And your
energy isn't going to hurt you.
Yeah, exactly. If that's the case, your inner being or your higher self, and however you look at that, like you just have to trust that if it's not the right time, it's not going to tell you. And if it's not going to be helpful, it's not going to tell you. The kinds of questions, I'm trying to think of the kinds of questions that I asked. Definitely some like broader questions around like purpose. Like, what is there something that I'm doing that I shouldn't be, or is there something I'm not doing that I should be, kind of thing, like to work my way onto my highest path, or to like continue moving down my highest path. So kind of setting the overall intention there of like, I just want to know what's going to get me onto my highest path and in life. Like, how can I bridge the gap between like me and my higher self? So there were a lot of questions, and also like, just certain like affirming little answers of like, I've had certain kind of just like randomly, I guess, certain readers of different kinds like tell me things. I haven't gotten a lot of like readings of like different spiritual readings. I haven't had a lot of them done, but I've had like little kind of like, I've been to a lot of like fairs and things like that where
like miniature sessions,
little mini versions of things where sometimes someone would look at me and be like, you were this and you did this. And I'm like, okay. Like cool. I was told by someone that, which I do, like I connect with as one of my guides, I connect with Mary Magdalene, who is, well, my name is Madeline, so it's like similar, and I just like feel a connection with her. But like a person, a reader had told me before, just sort of in passing, that like that I lived a life as like this little girl in the time of like Jesus being around, and that I was like in the village, that like I lived in the village, and basically that I made talismans out of Mary Magdalene's hair, like for Jesus to like bring good luck. And I was like, that is very specific. Very specific. And like the sort of sense that I got from her telling me that, this is just like a random reader who I don't really know well, but the sense that I got was that like I was this little girl who like I really looked up to Mary Magdalene, and that I like wanted to be like her, but that I had this weird sense that there was something about like my mom thought I was bothering her, and like didn't like would always like shoo me away and be like, oh, don't listen to her, or, like, things like that like belittled me. And so I basically like during that session, that was one of my questions, was like, can we talk a little bit more about this that I was told? Like, is there truth to this, or like what's the message coming out of this? And I got basically like, it gave me just like a better insight of, and it helped me see my relationship with my mom better too, actually, because I don't know if I think it was like a different person, not my current mom, but the sense that I got was that I, again, like really looked up to Mary Magdalene, but that I thought, it's not that my mom thought I was bothering her, it's that my mom thought that I was never capable of being like her, basically, like that I wasn't like that, and that I wasn't like I really looked up to her and wanted to be like her. And then I got the sense that like my mom would shoo me away and all of that, because she's like, that can never be you, basically.
Heartbreaking.
It was, but exactly, to experience as like this little child, this little girl. And that was the only piece I got from like, it was just, we didn't go any deeper into it, anything like that. No need to expand on it. Just like that's a relevant message for you, for your life. And that's probably why I was told that little piece was like my higher self probably knew that I could use that to help gain some insight on like maybe why, another little piece of like why I struggle with self-worth. And especially with like Mary Magdalene being this spiritual leader, like that's kind of like I'm pursuing a like spiritual lifestyle this time around. Yeah. So it would make sense to me that like that's a relevant message where actually like you can be like her if you want to, you know, like because your mom or whoever told you that you can't, it doesn't mean that's true. So that was
Do you feel like that was like an opening of like, you know how we go through like initiations or where we feel like we've been like given a permission slip almost like from a higher experience, and there's like this opening that's like, oh wait, no, it's like this. And
it's actually, it is a really cool feeling and like validating for me as a way to continue practicing meditation and like going into those deep meditative states that, I mean, I worked with a hypnotherapist, but you can get there on your own into a meditative state like that, where the rational conclusion that you came to, just like when you were going about your day or whatever, might not be quite it, if that makes sense. Like the sense that I, even like my initial intuitive sense about what I was told about, like, you know, maybe I was seen as like some little nuisance or something, like I was in the way and I got shooed away and whatever. Like that was close, but that didn't quite like hit the nail on the head. In order to like really get that deep sense of intuition that like I could feel in my body, I had to go into that meditative state and like really get quiet and tune in. Because even like it's, I think, especially for me with like Sagittarius, I have an ninth house. I always mix them up, North Node. It's Virgo North Node in the ninth house. So there's sort of that air of like Sagittarius in there. And so I'm working towards like just trusting my intuition and trusting what comes to me. But that was another piece that I learned, that like, unless you're in that, like consciously in this like sort of meditative space where you're really tuned in, like, you know, your conscious mind might still be kind of adding its opinion, its like logic and its rationale to the intuitive sense that you've gotten. And the more that you practice meditation and the more you practice going to that space, the more it just becomes natural to you, where you're just like thinking and operating from that place of being really connected to your higher self. And I've noticed that like the more that I choose to connect with my higher self every day, like the more clearly my intuition comes through and I can just feel it in my body. Like, this is true.
Yeah.
Like, I don't feel it in my head. Like, yeah, that seems right. That seems true. Like that's logic. That's your head. But if it feels true, like it's a practice. You have to practice getting into that place where you can sense truth and intuition from that place in your body.
It is such a process of like, you know, how do I learn how to use my intuition? Like there's so many levels of even like being able to feel when you have something move inside of you is like a whole first phase, that if you don't have bodily sensations, which was very much where I was starting, I was very like detached from my body in general. So like even just opening back up either through like a yoga practice or time in nature or like whatever it is that like gets you reconnected with your body so that you can even feel when energy moves. And then being able to trust it is like a whole nother piece. It's like a whole process that I feel like I'm still learning how to use my intuition and how to tell it apart when like, yeah, this is a hell yes, need to move forward. And this one has some wobble in it. So I know that's not like a full hell yes. So that must be a hell no. So like, it's just like trying to figure out like all of these different sensations and like, what do you do with it? Because yes, to your point, like after you've been doing it a while, you really don't have to get to like a deep meditative state to be like sitting on your porch, like looking out over the horizon and like this picture just lands in your mind or this understanding just comes from nowhere. and you have that epiphany. And to me, it's like meditation, these, which I've only really done like religiously these last like 7 days, so such a beginner. But even in these 7 days, I've noticed that there's a willingness to sit with that and to not have to like rush into taking action on it or like rush into making it mean something. It's like, what if you just sat with it? What if you just like let it be for a minute and see if that's not just the introductory face? If like as you sit with it, if this doesn't move and now here's this that was under that, and you sit with that one and like it's so like to just slow the fuck down. And like, you don't need to make everything have value or be productive or make sense like in half a second flat. Like I can so get like caught in that where I immediately like jump to that. But even just in 7 days of meditating, it's like I've slowed myself down enough that there's enough of a pause where it's like something will come up and I'll be like, oh, I want to make a podcast episode out of that. Oh my God, I want to go record this. And there's enough of a pause where I'm like, or we could just sit with this for a minute and see if there's something deeper here that, yeah, you could run with this surface level part, but stuff that bubbles to your surface out of nowhere, even like while you're not in meditation, just anywhere, like there's usually way deeper roots than just like that very first little bit that you get. So
Yeah.
I feel like the meditation and cultivating that ability to go to the deep places lets you, even when you're fully conscious and awake, like lets you not rush what's happening inside of you. Like when it happens spontaneously, great, but like you got to still give it the space to like unfold. And without a meditation practice, like before a week ago, I feel like so often I was rushing off with surface level piece. I wasn't letting it be the deeper thing.
Yeah.
And so it's crazy how even just a little bit of slowing down like goes such a long way. And so whether it's QHHT or an at-home meditation practice or whatever that looks like, there's a lot of options there to get deeper into the intuition of what it.
Very true. I mean, like there's a reason that Mercury, our planet of logic and thinking, is the fastest moving one. It's the closest to the sun. It moves the fastest. Like, it's on this quick pace of understanding and thinking and figuring things out. And it's a fast energy. And then if you think of like, I guess just setting that mental energy, that mercurial energy, just kind of, that's the practice of meditation, is just sort of, it's not like you're eliminating that. You're just kind of like, instead of being Mercury, you're watching it, you're observing it, and you're like, wow, look how fast that's going around the sun, like, look how quickly that's moving. And the more you can just sort of, like you said, like just be with whatever comes up and try to move that from your mental space into your heart space and just kind of let it sink in. And generally, at least in my experience, is like what arises from that is so much deeper and more profound than any kind of understanding I would get. Like the situation I referenced with this like past life in the village where Jesus was, is like, the understanding that I got from it initially before going into a meditative like hypnosis state was good and like made sense to me, and it resonated with me, and I felt like I could get something out of that too, of like feeling, I can understand how in a past life I felt like I was brushed aside or like treated like I was in the way all the time. But then by allowing myself to sink deeper into that, into like just kind of be with it for a little and see what rose up, I got so much deeper of an understanding that resonated so much more, and that I got so much more out of. So it's not like your mind is just wrong all the time or something like that. That's not to say that your logic and your mental mercurial energy can't make beautiful sense out of things that like resonates with you and helps you improve your life. It totally can. It's just that there's generally, if you're willing to sit with it, you can get so much more out of it.
And I feel like that like comes full circle on this whole conversation between masculine and feminine, because Mercury is a very masculine planet. And that's like thinking and logic and perception. And like, it's not emotional. It's in the head. It's not in the body, not in the heart. And to your point, like there's room for both. There's room for all of it. There's high expressions of all of it, right? Like there's times when our quick thinking keeps us alive. So by all means, like learn how to trust your quick thinking. And that's why our thinking is so fast, because it's like it's been honed over time. The fastest thinkers, they came up with solutions to problems and they survived. So, there's a reason that our brains work the way they do, because we are the survivors of all the other ones who came before. So, but, like there is so much more to this world than what we can logic our way through.